just starting out, what would they want to hear? And I thought about myself when I was in that position, and I thought it'd be really helpful to learn what to expect, what obstacles are coming your way, and how not to become disheartened as you get into the industry. And so I decided to talk about getting out of your own way and overcoming self-doubt to unlock your full potential. So have you guys, by a show of hands, ever wanted to apply to a job, partake in a hackathon, or maybe just talk shop with a peer, but you doubted your abilities? I know I have. Well, we're going to get into that, but first, I should introduce myself. My name is Steven Cedeno. I'm a senior web application engineer at Nike as a contractor. This presentation is not a representation of Nike, just to be clear. But I'm here as your advocate and your cheerleader. I want to encourage you all to stay engaged, be motivated, and more importantly, trust yourself and have confidence. So what we're going to talk about today, a little bit about my path, identifying self-sabotage, overcoming self-doubt, and building your confidence, some resources, and we'll have a Q&A. Feel free at any point during the presentation just to interrupt and ask a question. That's totally great. So what this presentation is to boost your confidence. What this presentation is not is interview tips and tricks. Well, maybe a little bit, but not entirely. Oh no. Just went away.
It just went away?
Yeah. Oh, it's like the second window closed itself.
There's a ghost in the shade.
Always. Actually, is this where we were? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So a little bit about me. I don't want to make this about me, but just so you know who I am and maybe trust the words coming out of my mouth a little bit. I have some experience. So out of college, I didn't know how to get my foot in the door. So what I did is I started working at nonprofits, anywhere from the local police department, the Santa Ana Police Foundation was where I started. From there, I worked at a mega church. That was another nonprofit that I helped. And from there, I was able to have enough experience to get into a startup, which is usually your best option starting out in the industry. So that was a company called Uco. We did some really cool stuff with web analytics, where we actually captured user interactions and recreated them as a video session, where typically you just have like a chart or graphs showing like heat maps of where people have been. So that was really cool. From there, I went to Zappos, and just a little bit of information to encourage you guys to always like apply to anything that you're interested in or that you're really passionate about. I really wanted to work at Zappos because of their company culture. I applied to a senior software engineer position as a junior, and I still got the job. It wasn't a senior position, but they made a role for me. And I really strongly encourage you to go out there. If there's a company you really want to work at, just shoot for it, go for it. I don't want to say just do it because that's Nike, but you can do it. So that's that. From there, I went to Expert Voice. I worked there for 3 years, and then moved here to Portland and took a job at Nike. One thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, talking about my past, is how I kind of got here as an engineer. When I graduated high school and went into college, I was going to be an architect. That was sturdy in my mind. And ever since I was like 5 years old, I knew I wanted to be an architect. I knew I wanted to build things that would help people, that they could use, that'd be useful. And I got into college, and I had a teacher tell me, you suck at math. You're never going to be an architect. And I listened to them, and I decided I was going to have to do something else. And I found, there weren't boot camps when I started. So I found a college that was a 3-year program where I could get done quickly to catch up for that lost time. And I decided that I'd go into web development because I could still build things to help people. And even during that time, I had a teacher approach me and say, is this right for you? Should you quit? And that really pushed me to really engage fully and push through. And I think now, I wouldn't be here speaking to you today if I had listened to that teacher and given up. Just like I'm not an architect, I want to be a software engineer. And so I want to encourage you to not let anyone get in your way. Don't let anyone cause doubt in your mind. You can do anything you put your mind to. I know your mom told you that when you were a kid, but it's the truth. So, are you getting in your way of your own path? Let's find out. I'm not sure how this is going to work. Okay. I'm not ready to interview. I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as. I can't do a hackathon yet. Things don't naturally come to me. I'm not talented enough. What if I introduce bugs? And yes, maybe I'm not meant to be a developer. If these self-doubting thoughts sound familiar to you, you're not alone. By a raise of hands, does anyone have these thoughts? Have they had these thoughts? I have a lot. Many of my colleagues, regardless of seniority, have expressed these same sentiments. Throughout my whole career, and no matter what company I worked at Nike, Zappos, any of them, everyone I've worked with has had these same feelings. But we're going to short circuit these thoughts today. We're going to give you some tools to help with that. This is from one of my favorite books that I'm still reading. It's called The Motivation Manifesto by Brendan Burchard. And I think this is very powerful. Only 2 things can change our lives. Either something new comes into our lives or something new comes from within. I think that's incredibly powerful. And so often we're waiting for that something new, like we just don't have enough luck. We just haven't had the right situation. We haven't had the right thing come into our lives. But I really think that it's having something spark from within. And I hope by speaking with you today to accomplish both of these. I hope to be that something new, banging you in the head, encouraging you that you are smart enough, you're good enough, you can do this. And I truly hope that this sparks something within you. So let's get started into some of the key takeaways. You are going to get stuck. Getting stuck is expected. Really everyone gets stuck. What you should do is embrace this as an opportunity. I wanted to make a point that regardless of your seniority or coworker seniority, everyone gets stuck, and they get stuck often. This is why you get paid so much money to do this, because you're constantly hitting walls and having to create solutions to get past those hard problems. And you wouldn't get paid this much money if it wasn't hard work. But you shouldn't let that distract you or discourage you. It just means you're growing and you're learning, and it's going to take time for you to get past each one of those things. But as you do it more and more, you'll get stuck a lot less often. I did want to say embrace being comfortable with uncertainty and knowing you won't always know. It's just the name of the game. You're always learning something new. Technology is always changing. You might know everything today, and tomorrow you won't. You just have to be comfortable with that and understand that that's just the industry that we're in. But I want to encourage you that you will find the solution, even if it requires you seeking help. It doesn't matter. You'll find the solution, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. So some key takeaways. In college, I had a teacher who was very helpful. She said, when you hit a problem that you do not understand, banging your head on the keyboard, you're just ready to give up, you need to walk away. And I can't stress this enough. Throughout my entire career, this has been the most helpful tool that I've used. I've got up, got a beer, got a coffee, gone to the gym, anything else besides looking at my computer screen. And every time I come back, the solution is in front of me. It just, my mind is at ease, I have a fresh mind, a fresh start, and it's just, oh, that freaking semicolon or something simple like that. So I really recommend that. There's another term called rubber ducking, which some of you may be familiar with, some of you may not. Rubber ducky is just talking through the problem. This came from someone having a rubber ducky, a literal rubber ducky, like on top of a computer monitor, and they would talk through the problem at the rubber ducky. But you can do this with a colleague, a friend, yourself, in the shower, doesn't matter. Sometimes just talking through the problem or reading through the code as a computer, that really is helpful in understanding where the problem is happening. And it's very crucial. Getting a second pair of eyes, don't be afraid to do that. I do this all the time. Unit tests, I hate them sometimes. And it's always something simple. And I'm never afraid to just say, hey, what am I missing? And someone else is often able to see that a lot easier than I am. And I want to encourage you that you will solve it, no matter how hard a problem seems. I think back to the early part of my career, and I think about the things I've accomplished, the things I've built, and the things I've done, and I never would have thought I would have done them. I never would have thought I would have been capable of doing that. And I really want to encourage you that no matter what you're dealt in the future or now, no matter how hard a task may seem, you can do it. I know you can, because I'm doing it. And I have that same concern. All right, this is my favorite one. Intelligence is relative. So often when we're working with others in school or on the job, we may look at someone and they're kind of in a leadership position, or just things seem to come naturally to them where you feel like you're maybe behind. But it's really just a mirage. We perceive others as more intelligent when they really just have more exposure or experience to the subject matter. And I noticed this in college. I noticed that other people may have been learning something faster than I did, and there were things that I was learning faster than others. And when I put it together, it was just that I was spending more time in a certain area than they were. And I really want to encourage you, if you're in school, you have to go beyond whatever you're learning in school and have to teach yourself as well. That's how you're going to excel. But also on the job, you should apply that as well. Practice, practice, practice. That's my go-to to tell you to just go for it. And you'll become more proficient and confident over time with practice, with repetition. It's just like working out at the gym. I know how it feels to doubt yourself, and I really think that these tools will help you. And don't worry if you can't do something, because I know you can, but figure it out. This is my favorite. Don't compare yourself with anyone else. Everyone is in a different position. Everyone has different contexts and skills. And you can't compare your experience with anyone else. No matter if you just both started a program at the same time, you're going to go through that program, through that time differently. The best thing you can do is compare where you're at with where you were yesterday. And if you're growing, that's all that matters. If you're not, then assess that and find out how you can change. This is something that I do all the time, and throughout my career, I always have to go back and remind myself of this, because there's architects above me, there's seniors above me, and they may have opinions, and I may want to just agree with them because they're in a position of power. But I have to remind myself that just because they're in a position above me doesn't mean that my opinion doesn't matter as well. And so don't compare yourself with them in that respect, and don't feel like you have to be someone that you're not. Imposter syndrome. Have any of you heard of imposter syndrome? Yeah, I still have it, and many people that I work with do. This is something you're going to probably fight with your whole career. It's okay. Most people do. Remember, we all have these self-doubting moments. Just don't let them defeat you. It's a natural thing to judge yourself more critically than others do. You just have to be aware of it and fight through it, and know, like I've been telling you, that you are smart enough and good enough, and you will solve whatever is in front of you. So don't let your experience or lack thereof make you feel defeated or doubt yourself. This is my favorite thing. It took me a long time to learn this as I was in the professional setting and out of school. Rather than accept not knowing, make it a point to know. And I say this because so often, even today, I will be in a meeting or walking through a hallway and I'll hear other developers discussing something, no matter what it is. Maybe it's a Lambda or some AWS thing that I don't have any context or experience with. I will keep that in my mind, and then I get back to my desk, I will jot down what it is, And then I'll research it. I'll Google away to find out what it is they're talking about. And so often that leads me down a rabbit hole of other new things to learn. And that gives me context because later I'll hear these things again and I'll be able to put the pieces together and understand what they're talking about. And so I think that's very important whether you're in school or listening to a podcast, reading a book, whatever it is. If you don't understand something, if you don't know what a term is, and there's so many of them in our industry, if you don't know what the Chris stack is, just kidding, it's a joke on Twitter, or the mean stack, you should write those things down and research them. Technologies change so quickly. You're not expected to memorize everything. I think so many times people have this conception that if they don't know something, that they're not intelligent enough, or they haven't been studying hard enough, or they're not good enough. It's just not the case. Everything around us is moving so quick, it's hard to keep up. When you're in an interview or anything else like that, they're not expecting you to memorize everything. You are expected to know how to program, but you are expected to Google as well on the job. This is what everyone does. We're not computers. We can't memorize everything that's happening, so that's okay to do. I just want to make that clear. And you're expected to ask for help. You should try to time box the solution if you can't figure it out on your own. Time box it. Give yourself a half hour, hour, however long, but don't spend a week on it. And then go ask someone for help to get through the problem. You will learn something by doing that, and you'll walk away stronger from it. This is something I just recently started to do, and I thought it'd be great to give you guys this kind of context so you're not having to go through your career and learn this later on your own. Ask your peers how they overcame their imposter syndrome. It really humanizes people that are in higher positions above you, and it makes you realize that they're human and they're going through the same things that you are. So I really encourage you to do that, even if it's a classmate or a teacher. You can even ask this in interviews. I think that's really great. If it's a comfortable interview, that is where you're kind of like more conversational, it builds trust, and trust begets relationships. So I feel like coworkers that I've had, I've been able to build friendships out of sharing something personal and then them sharing something personal, and actually walking away stronger from that, being able to apply the same things that they did. You'll learn your feelings have company, and you'll gain new tools to combat those feelings. I kind of just talked about that now. The feeling of being paralyzed when confronted with intimidating tasks is always going to be present, and there's always that voice in your head saying, you need to be better than this. No other developer freezes up like this. No other presentation is this boring. But you have to get past those thoughts and remember that you're capable and you are good enough. Make that clear. Building confidence. This is such a great thing to do, and it's something that I still do. I look at my past accomplishments. Just like I was saying how I didn't think I would build the things that I built. It's fun to go back and look at what I've done. And I think for each of you that would be something very empowering for you to do as well. It's a great practice looking at the things you've already done and remembering how far you've grown. Any one of you can answer questions on Stack Overflow. There is such a vast majority of questions out there ranging from simple to complex, and it would be very easy for any of you to do this. It's also great if you have a username that matches your GitHub account, because employers can look to see how active you are in the community. So that would be a great place for you to build some street cred. And even this, recalling the last question a non-developer friend asked you at a coffee shop. Be humble about it, but just remember that you used to be that person and you've grown a lot since that time. And this is my favorite, ask an interviewer a difficult question and see how they answer or squirm. You're uncomfortable in that position, and it's fun to make them uncomfortable as well. So that segues into interviews. I wanted to bring this first bullet point highlighting my experience at Zappos, applying to a role that I didn't meet the criteria for, but still got a job anyhow. So I highly recommend that you apply, even if you don't fully meet the criteria. And another tip about that is if you see that there's a part of that that you don't meet, take notes of what those things are and try to learn those on your own. And then you can still apply. The key thing to remember is that interviews are not a one-way street. It's not an interrogation, and it can feel that way. And the way that you make it not that way is by making it a conversation. Remember you're interviewing them too, so prepare questions to ask. I'll help you guys with some example questions that you can ask. And no questions asked of you. In the early part of my career, I would bomb so many interviews, and I would write down every question that I couldn't answer. And I'd go and research how to do it. And so often, I would go to my next interview, and they'd ask a similar question, and I would then know how to answer it. So I really think this is crucial to you. You're already going to have a notepad there with questions you're prepared to ask. So just write down questions that they ask of you. And I want you to know that rejection is not always a reflection of you. I strongly should have like flashing marks here. Not any interview, not two interviews will be the same. And some interviewers may be interviewing you and don't have any context or experience in the work that you're actually doing or will be doing. And they may have just Googled some interview questions that may not even pertain to it. So, be aware of that. Don't let that cause you self-doubt or question your abilities just because you were rejected by an experience like that. Some questions don't pertain to the job. I had a friend at work telling a story about how they were in an interview and they asked them to archetype some kind of solution that would give everyone in the office a glass of water. And they said, is that what my job will be, getting people a glass of water? Well, no. Well, then why am I building the solution? I think it's okay sometimes to push back and remind people of what you're going to be doing. Some interviews have been structured so oddly, and I want to put that as a wind of caution to say this isn't always a reflection of you. It may be the culture of the business, it may be the culture of that person, so don't let rejection affect you personally. You should be confident, not arrogant. At Nike, for instance, there is an interview question where they ask you to rate your abilities, and so many companies do this from a scale of 1 to 10 or whatever. If someone straight out of college says I'm a 10, they're not going to bring you back for another interview. Because there's no way just out of college that you know everything. We never know everything, and we should be humble enough to accept that and to admit that to others. I never have given myself whatever the top mark is. I give myself slightly above the middle. Because I think there's always so much to learn, and no matter how long I've been doing it, there's always something new to learn, and there's always going to be someone better. So I'm never going to rate myself the highest, and I don't think you should either. Last point, talk shop, make it conversational. This is going to make you at ease. It's going to build confidence. This is going to be more natural to you. It's just going to be a conversation. It's going to eat up a little bit of that time of the interview, so maybe there's less technical questions. I don't know. But it also gives you control of the conversation. It's not something being dictated to you or you feeling pressured to answer a bunch of questions. You're not a Google search engine. So this is really powerful in interviews, and it also helps you build a personal connection with your interviewer. So these are some examples of interview questions that I like to ask, and I'll leave these up here for a little bit if any of you want to write them down. But these are examples of easy ways to start a dialogue, and they usually spread out into a matrix of additional questions. The interviewer will answer my question, and then they'll ask me another question, and then that will go back and forth. And it really is nice, and it's refreshing because it's a lot more natural, and it provides an ease to the flow of the interview. And this is going to really boost your confidence because you are exposing what you already know. So it's providing insight into your knowledge, and it's also building that personal connection with your interviewer. Is everyone okay if I move on? Okay. Cool. So here are some resources. If you are unsure of your abilities, you want to rank your abilities, you're not sure where you are, these are some great tools. Code Wars, you can compete with other people, you can do coding challenges, and do all sorts of like algorithms and things. it's great preparation for interviews. Interview Cake is my favorite. They have a free course, but I also have the paid one. And they will help you get an interview literally anywhere. If you want to work at Nike, Facebook, Google, whatever, that Interview Cake is pretty much the best in my opinion to get you prepared to do that. There's tons of books out there, but this is a great online resource. HackerRank, I definitely recommend you check this out. Even if you don't like the user interface or the content that's there, but I highly recommend you check it out just to get comfortable with the user interface, because so many jobs will send you a link to HackerRank to do a coding challenge. And if you're not familiar with the user interface, you'll spend a lot of the time allotted to you for that test just trying to understand how things work. So get familiar with that now, and it'll save you time later. This is my favorite resource to actually learn how to do new things. If I want to learn, I don't know, the latest and greatest of Angular, then I'm not advocating for that. I'm a React person all the way, but Pluralsight is a good place to go. They have content from so many developers, and anything you want to learn is there. My favorite thing about Pluralsight is they have like a kind of coding challenge. It's kind of like multiple choice. And what they do is they give you a rating of like where you are compared to other people in the industry. I know I recommended not to compare yourself to others, but it's so easy to identify where your weaknesses are, and then you can work on them and become a better developer by strengthening those areas. Udemy is not one that I personally used, but I'm still recommending it because they have great content. And then Pramp.com is a new resource I just learned about like 3 months ago. I found it Googling around. This is an exceptional resource that's completely free. They allow you to do behavioral mock interviews. So someone will actually call you and give you an interview as if it's a real job. But they'll also do technical interviews. So if you're afraid to go to an interview, you can do this. There's no pressure. There's nothing at risk. And it's completely free. So schedule yourself for a free interview and get some experience. They'll give you feedback on how to improve. It's super helpful. I've just recently done this. I do it more for behavioral, but I haven't tried the technical one yet. And follow other smart people on Twitter. So often they'll tweet things, terms, technologies, things that I don't even have any context about, and I do exactly what I'm recommending. Take note of it, research it, and that's going to open up new doors for you. So this is the best advice I can give you for resources. Lastly, work hard to be nice to people, guys and gals. There can be an elitist culture in tech, and I really strongly urge you to not become a part of that. You are trying so hard to work your way up the ladder, and you should encourage other people and motivate other people to climb that ladder with you. So make sure you do that. And if you guys have any questions, I can answer those. Nothing?
How long have you been working?
Going on a year in April. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about like your experience of interviewing like on Zappos versus like
Yeah. So every interview, every company's gonna be different, but Zappos was a phone interview first to make sure I was a culture fit. Then I had another phone interview with 2 managers, and then I had another phone call with a senior engineer. Then they sent me a technical challenge that I had to complete within 2 hours and send back. And then a couple weeks go by, and then they called me and scheduled on site. So they flew me in, gave me a hotel. It was an 8-hour interview. I was in a room the size of where that window is, perfectly square. It was very tiny and hot. And I had, I think, 10 different people come into that room throughout the course of the 8 hours. There were whiteboard challenges. There was behavioral questions asked of me. It was probably the longest interview I've ever had in my life. But it was probably the best place I've ever worked. And Nike was totally different. I was still living in Utah. I had a Skype call with 2 engineers and a manager, and they liked me and hired me just from that one phone call. So it can really range. Depends on the company. Places like Google are probably going to be like Zappos, where it's going to be a long process and a lot of time. I know my friend is interviewing at Mozilla, and it's a 100-day process. So those things are just going to range company to company.
Matthew Holmes online asks, did your friend with the water question?
Yeah.
Did he get the job where he pushed back on that question?
I'm not sure, because that was a friend from work resharing their story.
Okay.
But I'm going to guess maybe not. If they refuse to answer that question, they probably refuse the job entirely. Is my guess. But,
He accepted a job elsewhere.
oh, okay. So there we go.
Thanks.
So if you guys want to connect with me, you can find me anywhere at devappended. Don't look at my GitHub because I don't have anything there, but you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn there. I'm happy to connect with you and give you more resources if you need them, or continue to be your cheerleader and motivate you that you're good enough and smart enough to do this. If there's anything I can help you with, just let me know. Oh yeah.
I was wondering what, I guess what distinguishes, or what makes, at what point do you know you're a mid or senior level developer? And do you have any general advice for how to get to that point? Or those
I'm sure this opinion varies person to person. In my opinion, you don't really know. Because in my personal experience, I've always had to fight against these things and telling myself that I'm not good enough. So I always feel like I'm still in school. There's always so much to learn. When really that's not the case. I mean, I'm a senior engineer now, but I just never feel that way. And that may not be the case for you or anyone else. That's been my personal experience. But using those resources I listed, it's a good way to kind of gauge yourself where you might lie with other people. I would just strongly encourage you not to count yourself if you're lower in the ranking than other people. But it is a good way to identify what your strong suits are and what they're not. But if you're considering a mid-level role and you think you're a junior, I still say apply. If you're considering a senior role and you think you're a junior or a mid, it doesn't matter. Honestly, at the end of the day, a title is just that. It's just a title. It's not a true reflection of who you are or what your capabilities are. It's just the people in that interview liked you, you said the right things, and you got the job. That's my personal view. I don't think the title really defines the person. So be confident in who you are and your abilities, and the right role will come for you.
Another question online asks, could you explain the term technical debt that you talked about in the interview question segment?
Yeah, that's a good question. So technical debt is like we are introducing new features into whatever we're building, and perhaps there's parts of that new feature that we don't have the time to complete. Maybe we didn't write unit tests. Maybe we didn't refactor it the way we wanted to, and we just didn't have the time to do that in the time allotted. So technical debt can be the stuff kind of left over, the cruft, that you want to invest time in to tackle later on. Yeah.
What's your experience with working in Scrum?
So every company I've worked for, except for Nike initially, was Scrum. When I came to Nike, it was Kanban, which I don't personally enjoy, but we did just switch to Scrum. Do you have experience working in Scrum?
Yeah,
Like
I'd
it?
be looking for like a Scrum Master position, so I'm curious to know
Oh, that's great.
what a developer would want from a Scrum Master.
What I look for in a Scrum Master is someone who engages the team. They kind of insulate the team from outside opinion. That's kind of the role of the product manager as well. But if you don't have a strong product manager, then that really falls on the Scrum Master. But the Scrum Master also has to protect the team from outside opinions trying to add scope to tickets or to whatever work you're doing. But it's really your job to take the pitchfork to outside influencers and protect the team so that they can be highly productive and meet the goals that they set out to do as a team. All right, well, you know where to find me. If you have questions, hit me up. I'm happy to help. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.